everybody. Why lines have stayed long at airports, the funeral of a University of Alabama student, and why you might not be able to see the Blue Angels practice at least conveniently anytime soon. So click and stick right here as we start News 5 Now.
Brought to you by Green & Phillips Injury Lawyers, covering news from your neighborhood and around the world. News 5 Now starts right now.
Good day to you. I'm Chad Petrie, and today for Shamani Baker. Welcome into News 5 Now at 8:05 every day. We check out the big stories that we're covering from around the region. We talk about our question of the day and the poll of the day. Get your feedback here. So let's start, of course, as we do every weekday morning, with those big stories that are happening around the region and around the town. First, number 5, the Transportation Safety Administration says most of its officers received most of their back pay yesterday for working during the government shutdown of DHS. The DHS shutdown specifically lasting 45 days, the longest so far in history. Number 4, the president and CEO of Air Canada, Michael Rousseau, is stepping down later this year after his condolences video following a runway crash at New York City's LaGuardia Airport this month that killed both pilots. The condolence message was only in English with French subtitles. Air Canada is based in primarily French-speaking Quebec and says its new CEO search will focus on bilingual candidates. Number 3, the funeral for a University of Alabama student who died while vacationing in Spain will be held today. James Paul Gracie's funeral happening a little later this morning at about 9:30 in his hometown of Elmhurst, Illinois. That's near Chicago. Gracie was last seen on March 17th. His body was found 2 days later from what investigators believe was an accidental drowning. Number 2, you can no longer view the Blue Angels practicing from behind the Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola. It's temporary, and it's not clear when this suspension will be lifted. You can still catch the beloved Blue Angels from Fort Pickens and various other locations around Pensacola. They are set to fly tomorrow around 10:30 in the morning. Number 1, families have until midnight tonight to renew or apply for the CHOOSE Act in Alabama, their school choice program. Eligible families can apply online for educational funding for the 2026-27 school year. The funding can help pay for school tuition, tutoring, educational therapies, and other education expenses. And that's a look at some of the big stories happening around our region. Of course, we always wanted to get your feedback on the different things that we're talking about. And one of the things that we're talking about is the question of the day. The question is, will you be watching the UFC cage match at the White House? This is something that's been talked about, I think, at least for more than a year at this point. Now, a lot of anticipation for this event, questions about whether or not the White House would even be a location that's a viable spot for a sporting event like this. People saying that Chip Williams saying, I will watch it when it's not at the White House. And others saying that others will be definitely watching it. The only thing that stops me from watching UFC, because I love MMA and UFC. I think there's an artistry, especially to the grappling aspect of it. The only thing that stops me is time, because the great MMA journalist Ariel Helwani once pointed out that being a fan of the UFC is sort of like being a fan of a West Coast basketball team who lives on the East Coast, because all the main events for the UFC generally take place like really late at night. Like the main event for your average pay-per-view card, and I know they don't do pay-per-views anymore, but for their big UFC numbered events, usually it doesn't happen until like midnight Central Time. So you've got to stay up really late on a Saturday night to take that all in. So it's a big thing that's going to be happening in the not too distant future. People thinking about that. That's going to be coming up, so we'll have to see. The other thing about UFC events is that, unlike pro wrestling, where they can script the outcomes, you can't script the outcomes of MMA or UFC. So sometimes fights can be boring. And sometimes the main attractions on the card have to drop out due to training injury or some other issue. So really, it's unpredictable as to how good the event overall will be or how good the fights will be. So we'll have to wait and see on that as well. All right, another thing we wanted to talk about today is our poll results. Our poll question from yesterday: should prices for necessary medications be capped? And it's interesting how people were weighing in on this. A lot of people saying yes. In fact, most of the people weighing in on this question, their response was generally yes. 137 saying yes versus 38 saying no. And so there are a lot of medicines that could fall under this category. For example, diabetes medication is one of those that could fall into that. There are a lot of different treatments that could fall into that necessary category. And it makes you wonder, are price caps necessary, and are there unintended consequences when there's action like that that is taken? All right, that's some of the things that we are covering here on News 5 Now. Of course, there's always stuff we're covering on News 5. If you want to keep up with us, of course, you have to like the WKRG Facebook page, and we'll have more results and more information, more feedback as we go on throughout the day. One of the things that you can do to keep up with us is, of course, like that Facebook page. It'll send you notifications when we do our next News 5 Now. That's all you have to do. All right, so there's other content that we have out there, not just News 5 Now. Of course, you can go to your TV and catch the rest of CBS Mornings. Then you'll be right where you need to be at 9 for News 5 at 9. I'll be live at the Maritime Museum just to catch a glimpse of the start of the Maritime Career Discovery Day. That's something pretty cool that's happening at the Maritime Museum today. They've got about 800 9th through 11th graders, mostly from Mobile and Baldwin counties, that are going to be getting some hands-on, not experience, but exposure to different maritime career opportunities. So that'll be something we'll have at News 5 at 9. We'll give you the latest forecast. And also, we want you to stay with us for News 5 Now at 12:35 and also 5:35 later today. We thank you for watching us, and you guys out there have a good Tuesday.
Covering news from your neighborhood and around the world. You are watching News 5 Now, brought to you by Green & Phillips Injury Lawyers.